Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today we're going to be looking into something a little different.
Oh,
Yeah. We usually cover the nuts and bolts of starting and running your own business.
right, right.
But a lot of you have been sending us this article.
Oh, yeah, this one's really interesting.
Yeah, and it basically argues that the whole way we think about entrepreneurship education needs a total overhaul,
Yeah,
you know, to make it actually inclusive and impactful for everyone.
yeah. It's a pretty powerful argument for sure.
So we thought we'd do a deep dive into this and really try to understand,
Yeah, how can we make this field better,
Oh,
for everyone?
exactly. I mean, can you imagine a world where everyone feels empowered to pursue their entrepreneurial dreams,
Mm.
regardless of, their background or their circumstances?
I mean, that's the dream, right?
Right. So, um, are you ready to uncover some seriously eye-opening insights?
Absolutely. I'm all in. Let's do it.
Okay, great. So this article kicks off by talking about a UNESCO meeting that happened recently.
Oh, yeah, I read about that.
Yeah, it brought together 200 delegates from 35 countries.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a big deal. And the main takeaway was this. There's now a global consensus that we need a more inclusive approach to entrepreneurship education.
Okay, but what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Mm.
And the article points out that our current model of, entrepreneurship education, it tends to idolize a very specific type of entrepreneur.
Yeah, like the Elon Musks and the Bill Gates of the world.
Exactly. And while, their achievements are definitely impressive,
No one's arguing that.
right, but by constantly holding them up as the gold standard, we kind of alienate a whole bunch of other people who could be amazing entrepreneurs.
It's like we're saying, hey, if you don't look like this or come from this background, entrepreneurship isn't for you.
Right. And that's super limiting, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We need to move beyond these narrow narratives
Yep.
and start recognizing that entrepreneurial potential exists everywhere.
Yeah, in every single community.
Exactly. The article argues that a truly inclusive approach has to be intersectional. Like we need to take into account things like gender, socioeconomic background, disability, geographic location, all of that.
So it's not just about, adding a few more diverse faces to the textbooks.
Right. It's about creating a system where everyone feels seen and heard and like they actually have a shot.
Yeah, they can achieve their goals.
Exactly. And this is where some insights from a few Nobel laureates in economics come into play.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they argue that while technology is obviously a huge driver of progress,
It's changing the world.
right, but it's not a magic bullet. Like we need strong institutions too.
Okay, that's interesting. Can you explain what they mean by strong institutions?
Yeah, so they're talking about things like access to quality education, healthcare fair labor practices, a transparent legal system, policies that promote social mobility, all of that.
So basically, the foundation that allows everyone to succeed.
Exactly. It creates a level playing field where everyone has a genuine opportunity regardless of their background.
So focusing on just technology without addressing these underlying issues, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone.
Wow, that's a powerful analogy.
Right. It might provide a temporary fix, but it's not going to solve the real problem.
No, at all, and the data backs this up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the UN Sustainable Development Goals report, it paints a pretty sobering picture.
Okay, hit me with it. What's the bad news?
Well, over 1/3 of the SDG targets, they've either stalled or regressed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and only 17% have been achieved as of 2023.
That's pretty bleak.
Yeah, it is. And this lack of progress, it's directly linked to the need for more inclusive entrepreneurship.
Because we can't tackle huge challenges like poverty and inequality and climate change without everyone's help, right?
Exactly. We need all hands on deck.
We need to be tapping into the full potential of humanity.
Right. And that's what this whole idea of inclusive entrepreneurship is all about.
So how do we actually make this happen? How do we move toward a more inclusive model of entrepreneurship education?
Well, the article dives into some practical strategies and highlights initiatives that are already making a difference.
Okay, so give us the good stuff. Tell us about these inspiring initiatives.
All right, so one example that stands out is the Inclusive Business Accelerator Program, or IBP, at Lingnan University in Hong Kong.
IBP, okay.
Yeah, and what's cool about this program is that it's built on the principle of co-creation. So they actually involve students from diverse backgrounds in designing the curriculum.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about teaching inclusivity, it's about actually living it.
Exactly. They're walking the walk.
I love that. Okay, what else? What other initiatives are out there?
Well, another one making waves is the Inclusive Digital Initiative Entrepreneurship Program, or IDE.
IDP, all right, got it.
This one's run by the Myanmar Women Entrepreneurs Network, and they're using technology to bridge access gaps and empower women to start and grow their own businesses.
So they're giving women the tools they need to thrive in a digital world.
Exactly. Digital literacy plus entrepreneurial skills. It's a powerful combination.
It is. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. There's this one called Solar Mamas, and it's amazing.
Solar mamas, what's that?
So they train women in rural communities all over the world to become solar engineers.
Wow, so they learn how to install and maintain solar panels.
Yep. They go to India for training, and then they bring those skills back to their villages.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example of how inclusive entrepreneurship can address social and environmental challenges at the same time.
While also empowering individuals and communities.
Exactly. It's a win-win-win.
These stories are so inspiring, but I imagine like scaling these kinds of initiatives up requires a pretty big shift in mindset and resources.
That's for sure. It's not easy.
So what did the article suggest in terms of practical steps?
Well, it emphasizes the need to move away from those traditional lecture-based approaches,
Yeah, like death by PowerPoint.
Right. And instead, embrace more experiential hands-on learning.
So things like project-based learning, community-based research mentorship programs.
Exactly. It's about giving students the opportunity to apply what they're learning in real-world settings.
That's where the magic happens, right?
Absolutely. And when they work on projects that benefit their communities, it instills a sense of purpose and social responsibility that goes beyond just making a profit.
It's about creating a generation of entrepreneurs who are driven by making a positive impact.
Yeah, they see themselves as change makers.
I love that. And to support these change makers, we need to rethink how we define entrepreneurial success.
Right, like what does success actually look like?
Exactly. And the article advocates for using the triple bottom line framework.
People, planet, profit.
Exactly. It's not just about the money, but also about the social and environmental impact.
It's about making sure the entrepreneurial ventures benefit everyone, not just a select few.
Yeah, and the planet too.
Of course. It's about sustainability in the broadest sense.
Okay, so I'm curious, thinking about this framework, how would you define a successful entrepreneurial venture?
That's a good question for me. Success would be measured by the positive ripple effects a venture creates, you know? Like, how is it impacting the community? Is it making the world a better place?
That's a great answer. Okay, so we've talked about, the current model, its limitations, the need for an inclusive approach, all of that. But where do universities fit into all of this?
They play a huge role. I mean, universities are often seen as like the breeding grounds for future entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, they're like the incubators of innovation.
Exactly. So they have a responsibility to be at the forefront of this movement.
So it's not just about offering a couple of entrepreneurship courses.
Right. It's about weaving inclusivity into the very fabric of the university.
The curriculum, the faculty, the culture, the whole shebang.
Precisely. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels welcome and supported.
And where they can thrive.
Exactly. So that they can reach their full potential.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but I want to bring up one final point that the article makes, and I think it's incredibly important.
All right, I'm listening.
It's the idea that an inclusive approach to entrepreneurship education, it's not just about doing the right thing.
It's about something bigger.
Yeah, it's about maximizing our collective potential as a society.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Like if we really believe that entrepreneurship is about solving problems and creating value, then we can't afford to exclude anyone.
Right. We need everyone's ideas and talents.
Exactly. We need all the brain power we can get.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
I love that. So listener, we've given you a lot to think about today, but before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Are we really tapping into the full potential of entrepreneurship if we're only looking in the same old places? Like, what if we start looking for those hidden gems? The people with incredible ideas who just need a little support to make them happen.
That's what it's all about, unlocking that hidden potential. It's not just about being fair. It's about realizing that we're missing out on so much innovation by not being more inclusive.
Like we're leaving so much talent on the table.
Exactly. And this article has some great examples of what happens when we broaden our perspective. Like, there's this story about a young woman named Rebecca from a rural village in Kenya.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember that one.
Yeah, she had this brilliant idea for a mobile app that would connect farmers directly with buyers, so they could cut out the middlemen.
Oh, wow. That's smart.
Right. But she didn't have the resources or the connections to get it off the ground.
Like she didn't know where to even start.
Right. So she joined this local entrepreneurship program specifically for women in rural areas.
Okay.
And through the program, she got training mentorship and even a small grant to develop her app.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And now her business is thriving, and she's become a role model for other aspiring entrepreneurs in her community.
That's such a great example of how the right kind of support can make all the difference.
It's not about having a one-size-fits-all solution.
Hmm.
It's about understanding the unique challenges and strengths of different communities and then tailoring our approach accordingly.
So it's like personalized entrepreneurship education.
Right. Exactly. And this is where educational institutions come in. They have a huge role to play in this.
Like universities and colleges.
Yeah, they have the resources, the expertise. They can really be at the forefront of this movement.
So it's not just about offering a few entrepreneurship courses here and there.
Right. It's about making inclusivity a core part of everything they do.
Like baking it into the DNA of the institution.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels like they belong and where they can reach their full potential.
So it's about more than just creating more entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's about cultivating a generation of leaders who are ready to tackle the challenges of the 21st century.
Leaders who are creative, empathetic, and committed to making a positive impact.
Exactly. It's about shifting the mindset from me to we, from individual success to collective well-being.
Okay, I love that.
Uh,
But let's be real here. Changing systems and mindsets is hard work. It takes time and effort.
oh, yeah, for sure. It's not going to happen overnight.
So what are some concrete steps that universities can take to, actually make progress on this?
Well, the article talks about a roadmap, and it starts with leadership.
Okay.
University administrators, they need to make a clear commitment to inclusivity, not just in words, but in actions.
That's a walk the walk.
Exactly. They need to allocate resources, set clear goals, and hold themselves accountable.
It's about putting their money where their mouth is.
Right. And it's not just about numbers. It's about creating a culture where different perspectives are actually valued, where everyone feels like they can contribute.
So that means diversifying the faculty, right?
Yeah.
So that students can see themselves reflected in the people who are teaching them.
Exactly. Representation matters. It can be so inspiring to see someone who looks like you or comes from a similar background achieving success.
It makes you believe that you can do it too.
Right. It gives you that sense of possibility, but it's not just about showcasing successful entrepreneurs.
It's about showing the diversity of paths you can take.
Exactly. Not everyone wants to be the next Elon Musk,
Right.
Some people are passionate about social entrepreneurship, about using business to make a difference in the world.
Or solving problems in their local communities.
Exactly. We need to celebrate all of those paths,
So it's about broadening the definition of what it means to be an entrepreneur.
And recognizing that success doesn't look the same for everyone.
I love that.
Mhm.
And we need to give students the tools and resources they need to define success for themselves.
Which means moving beyond those traditional lectures and textbooks,
More hands-on learning, more real-world experience.
Exactly. Give them projects to work on, connect them with mentors, get them out into the community.
Like if students are passionate about food insecurity in their community,
Right.
instead of just reading about it in a book,
Yeah.
they could partner with a local food bank or a community garden and actually develop a business plan for a sustainable food distribution system.
That's a great example. They're not just learning about entrepreneurship in theory, they're actually applying it to a real-world problem.
And they're developing valuable skills along the way.
Problem solving, collaboration, creative thinking, all of that.
Plus, they're building connections and networks that can support them in the future.
It's a win-win-win.
But creating these kinds of opportunities takes a lot of resources and creativity.
It does. But the article suggests that universities can leverage existing partnerships to make it happen.
Oh, like partnerships with local businesses and community organizations?
Exactly. They can create mentorship programs, internship opportunities, even seed funding for student ventures that address community needs.
That's brilliant. It's about using the collective power of the ecosystem to support the next generation of entrepreneurs.
And fostering a culture of collaboration and knowledge sharing, both within the university and with the wider community.
So everyone benefits.
Exactly. And there's this great example in the article about a university in the U.S. that created a community entrepreneurship hub.
Oh, what's that?
It's basically a space where students, faculty, and local entrepreneurs can all come together, to share ideas, resources, expertise.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's like a melting pot of innovation where all these different perspectives can come together and create something amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
But we have to remember that inclusivity, it's a journey, not a destination.
It's an ongoing process.
We have to keep learning, adapting, and evolving our approaches to make sure we're creating a truly welcoming and supportive environment for everyone.
And one of the key things the article emphasizes is data collection and analysis.
Oh, Brisley, I'm curious, how does data play into this?
It's all about accountability.
Yeah.
You know, if universities are serious about inclusivity, they need to track their progress and be transparent about the challenges they're facing.
So like collecting data on the demographics of their students, the diversity of their faculty, the success rates of entrepreneurs from different backgrounds.
Exactly. And then using that data to identify areas for improvement and measure the impact of their initiatives.
So it's not enough to just talk the talk. They have to walk the walk and then prove it with data.
Right. Data can be a really powerful tool for driving change.
But collecting data is just the first step, right? Then we have to actually do something with it.
Exactly. We need to analyze it, identify patterns and trends, and then use those insights to develop better strategies and interventions.
Like if the data shows that women are underrepresented in STEM entrepreneurship programs, then we might need to create targeted outreach programs to encourage more women to participate.
Right. Or if we see that entrepreneurs from low-income backgrounds are struggling to access funding, then we need to figure out how to address that.
So data can help us pinpoint those systemic barriers and develop solutions that actually work.
Precisely. But it's important to remember that data is just one piece of the puzzle, you know?
Yeah, we also need to listen to the people who are actually experiencing these challenges.
Exactly. We need to understand their stories, their perspectives, their needs.
So it's about combining data with lived experience to create a more holistic picture.
And that brings us back to the power of inclusion, you know? When we create a space where everyone feels valued, where we're all learning from each other, that's when the real magic happens.
That's when we can unlock our collective potential.
Exactly. So if we've talked a lot about universities, but what about the role of government and the private sector? How can they contribute to this movement?
Yeah, that's a good question. What does the article say about that?
Well, it emphasizes the need for a multi-pronged approach, you know, like everyone needs to be involved.
Okay, so what can governments do?
They can create policies that support diverse entrepreneurs, like tax incentives for businesses that promote inclusivity or funding for programs that provide training and mentorship.
So basically creating a more supportive environment.
Exactly. And they can also invest in infrastructure like broadband access in rural areas so that everyone has the opportunity to participate in the digital economy.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, what about the private sector? What can businesses do?
Well, one of the biggest things they can do is invest in supplier diversity programs.
So working with businesses owned by women, people of color, other underrepresented groups.
Exactly. And they can create mentorship and sponsorship programs for their own employees who want to become entrepreneurs.
So using their influence to create a more equitable marketplace.
Right. And it's not just about big corporations either.
Small businesses can get involved too.
Absolutely. They can support local initiatives that promote entrepreneurship among underrepresented groups. They can mentor young entrepreneurs, offer internships, even provide seed funding.
So it's about creating a ripple effect of inclusivity.
Where everyone feels empowered to contribute and everyone benefits from the collective success.
I love that. And it's not just about doing the right thing, it's also good for business.
Oh, absolutely. Studies have shown that companies with diverse leadership teams are more innovative, more profitable, and more resilient.
So it's a win-win for everyone.
Exactly. But we have to be honest, changing deeply ingrained systems and mindsets, it's not easy.
It's a long-term process.
It takes time, effort, and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
But the good news is that the momentum is building.
More and more people are recognizing the power of inclusive entrepreneurship.
And as we continue to share stories, celebrate successes, and hold each other accountable, we'll see real progress.
The article ends on a note of optimism. You know, it highlights this growing global movement towards a more inclusive approach to entrepreneurship education.
And that's something to be excited about.
Absolutely. It's a sign that things are starting to change.
So listener, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've talked about the challenges, the opportunities, the inspiring examples of what's possible.
And now we want to bring it back to you.
What resonated with you the most from our conversation today?
And what actions, big or small, can you take to contribute to this movement?
Because the future of entrepreneurship, it's in our hands.
Let's make it a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
So we've come to the end of our deep dive, and I have to say this has been a really eye-opening conversation.
Yeah, it's been great to really dig into this topic.
For sure. And I think we've covered a lot of ground, from the limitations of the traditional model to the incredible potential of a more inclusive approach.
And all the amazing things that are already happening around the world. Those inspiring stories.
Right. It's clear that, like, a more inclusive future for entrepreneurship, it's not just a dream, it's actually within reach.
Yeah, there's a real sense of momentum building.
For sure. But now it's time to, bring it back to you, the listener.
Yeah, what are you taking away from this conversation?
Exactly. What resonated with you the most? And what actions, big or small, can you take to, contribute to this movement? Because ultimately, this is about all of us.
Yeah, it's a collective effort.
It's about changing the world. One idea, one business, one community at a time.
And creating a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
That's beautifully said. So until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a world where innovation and inclusion go hand in hand.
And remember, the future of entrepreneurship is ours to create.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.